Headline: Tigray's People Liberation Front denies entering any Amhara region. The first shipment of grain from Ukraine to Ethiopia has arrived on August 30th in Djibouti. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yabsra Taka with tonight's news from African Renaissance Television. Stay tuned. A spokesman for the terrorist group in Ethiopia's Tigray region is denying a report that Tigrayan forces have captured a town in the neighboring Amhara region. The renewed clash broke out last week after 5 months of ceasefire. On Sunday night, it was reported that the TPLF had entered Amhara region town of Waldia, and some were also speculating the same on social media. The two sides agree that the first shots were fired in the early morning of August 24th on the southern borders of Tigray, where it adjoins the neighboring Amhara state known as Kobo. Each side blamed the other for firing the shots. Eyuel Ababa has more details.
On August 22nd, a TPLF representative told Voice of America that these claims were false, saying Tigrayan forces have not yet entered the town. So far, the renewed fighting has been centered around the town of Kobo further north. Waldia sits just over 300 kilometers from Addis Ababa and is a strategic point on the road leading south from the Tigray region's capital, Mekele, to Addis Ababa. In sessions in the Seychelles and Djibouti, it appears that an agreement was reached that Ethiopian forces would lift their blockade of Tigray, that Eritrea would withdraw the troops it had sent to support the government, and that the two sides would open full talks in the Kenyan capital Nairobi, hosted by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The first agenda item would be a permanent ceasefire. It is not exactly known why negotiations have broken down between the federal government of Ethiopia and the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front.
Earlier this year, the United States government had banned Ethiopia from participating in the African Growth and Opportunity Act. The reason Ethiopia was banned, according to the United States, was because of the alleged gross violations of human rights that have been happening in the country. The AGOA Act employs hundreds of thousands of Ethiopian women, mainly from the southern region of the country, who support their families back home. These women work in textile factories that export their produce to the United States. Ethiopia being banned from the act has resulted in 5 textile industries laying off their workers, 2 companies coming to a screeching halt, while 5,000 women have lost their jobs from Awasa Industrial Park. The total number of people who have lost their jobs is 5,783 people. Thus, this cruel punishment of banning these women from work impacts the lives of millions of Ethiopians while also costing the country millions of dollars it could use for other developmental projects. The first shipment of Ukrainian grain to Africa since the Russo-Ukrainian War started arrived in Djibouti on August 30th. The grain will be distributed in Ethiopian regions that have been drought-stricken to help them cope. A Russian blockade of Ukraine's seaport forced Ukraine to halt nearly all deliveries of grain, which sparked worries of worldwide food crisis. But a settlement between Kiev and Moscow that was mediated by the United Nations and Turkey in July, known as the Black Sea Initiative, saw resumption in exports of wheat, other produce, and fertilizers from the 3 Black Sea ports at the beginning of August. Eyuel Ababa has more to say on the matter.
According to government data, Ethiopia imports about 27% of its grain requirements from Ukraine and 15% from Russia. Data from the Ethiopia Agriculture Ministry estimates that the country will harvest some 2.4 million tons compared to 1.42 tons the prior year. This output is forecast to lower the country's wheat deficit to just 400,000 tons in 2022 after an additional 600,000 hectares of land was put under wheat cultivation this year. Most of this planting was done in Oromia and Amhara, 2 of the nation's largest regions. While Ethiopia has made significant progress in irrigation-based cluster farming, when smallholders pool resources to purchase inputs and negotiate for better prices, the number of people without food to eat has also increased.
Kenya's Supreme Court had ordered the recount of ballots cast at 15 polling stations during the August 9th presidential election. The order was one of several issued as the court began hearing the challenge to the victory of President-elect William Ruto. The recount request for Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua was for 15 polling stations in 4 counties: Kericho, Nandi, Nyandarua, and Mombasa. The first 3 counties voted heavily for Ruto, while Mombasa residents voted mainly for Odinga.
Eyuel Ababa has more details.
The court told Kenya's Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to provide the official voter registries and some election-related equipment for examination within 48 hours. Odinga is challenging the official election results that saw him lose by a small margin. Ruto got 7.1 million votes, while Odinga got 6.9 million. The Odinga camp believes the election was rigged in favour of Ruto, allegedly with the help of some electoral officers, and IEBC chairperson Wafulu Chebukati, a claim the chairman has denied. After the vote count was completed, Chebukati declared Ruto to be the winner, but 4 of the 7 commissioners publicly disowned the results, citing issues with the counting process. In Tuesday's hearing, lawyers from the opposing camps clashed over who had the right to represent IEBC, despite the court saying it would admit the arguments of all the commissioners. Some critics are mocking the former Prime Minister for again refusing to accept defeat, but legal experts, mainly from the Odinga camp, say Odinga's petitions have played a key role in improving the integrity of Kenya's elections and the stability of its democracy.
This was the news we had for you tonight. Thank you for staying tuned. Once again, I am Absalom Dimtaka from African Renaissance Television. Good night.